Okay, this is KNPR in Las Vegas.
Thank you for calling Nevada Public Radio. We'll be with you in just a moment. This is Dave.
Hello, Dave. My name is Daniel. I'm calling about a protest that's occurring tomorrow in Las Vegas. I just wanted to let you guys know about it. And
Yeah, hi Daniel. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
Good. Doing well, doing well. So, yeah, what are you protesting?
Okay, there's a group. I don't know if you've noticed on South Las Vegas Boulevard and Hiddenwell Road, there's a new billboard, and it's put up by a group called the Bloodstained Men. And they're a traveling group that seeks to educate the American population and parents about the true harms and nature of genital cutting. You know, in the United States of America, we're the only culture in the world that says that this is for medical reasons, and we strap down our little baby boys, and we cut off one half the surface area that includes 75% of the nerve endings, including the two most sensitive parts.
Okay, yeah. All right, so you're talking about circumcision, and
Yes, sir.
you're protesting that,
Yes, sir.
and you're concerned about what health?
Well,
Children's health.
it's a violation of human rights. It removes the main sensory tissue from our genitals. So men that have had this done to them, I'm circumcised myself. We have about 25% of the nerve endings left over. And we're missing the two most sensitive parts, what's known as the frenulum and the ridge band, which are full of what's called Meissner corpuscles, which are the most sensitive nerves of the body. Those are found in the fingertips and the lips. That's why touching and kissing feels good. So we're literally removing the main sensory tissue from the middle of our child's genitals, and it also has a mechanical function that reduces friction during sex, and it makes sex better for both partners. So it's very damaging. It's the most sensitive areas of the body. So of course, when you're cutting it off of a child, it's painful. The doctors today only 55 or 50 only 45% of them use any anesthesia whatsoever. And when you're doing local anesthesia in this for this surgery, it's only about 50% effective at reducing the pain. So every child that goes through this will experience extreme pain. So this can literally affect the way if you study what's called adverse childhood experiences, Harvard University has done a lot of studies on this, and they've shown that early life trauma can literally change the genome of the child. So the way that the genetics are expressed, it's called epigenetics, and there's literally morphological changes in brain structures such as the amygdala, the dorsal anterior cingulate, the rotator cingulate. I'm trying to memorize these names, but
No,
anyways,
you're doing great. Well, let me ask you this.
yes, sir.
What do you do for a living?
I used to actually live in Las Vegas. I was a orthopedic rehab specialist therapist, but I quit my job and I became a security guard so I can literally work on this full time. So I run an organization called Next Level.
And you
I'm sorry, go ahead.
and where do you live now?
I live in Tucson. I
In
live in
Tucson.
Tucson. I
Are you
used to live
doing
in.
similar protest? Are you doing protests around the Southwest or the
Yes,
West
sir.
or what?
Yeah, the group Bloodstained Men. I'm actually not associated with them. I'm an interested party. So I run an organization that we seek to educate people, and so our goal as an organization is to educate reporters, educate producers and editors about this issue, so that people can write better papers about it. Because a lot of the reporting that's done on this, they'll include, like, for instance, the American Academy of Pediatrics will state that the benefits outweigh the risks. Well, if you look at the benefits, like if you do your research on this, and I really implore you to do your research on this, to look at, like, for instance, the excuses like UTIs. For instance, the UTIs, they'll say it reduces UTIs. Well, it only reduces UTIs. Well, the studies that supposedly said that there's a reduction in UTIs are very questionable, because those studies were done on premature babies and babies that had forced retraction done, which is where the doctors will
And
purposely.
forgive me, what's a UTI?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's a urinary tract infection.
Okay.
Um,
Do me this.
yes, sir.
My email is Dave
Got it. Got it.
at kmpr.org. And
ORG.
just send me some background information. Put your contact info on there too, and I'll take a look at
Absolutely.
it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for your
All
time.
right.
Oh, did I? Can I?
Yeah,
Did I
for
tell
sure.
you that? Did I tell you the that the event was happening? I just want to let you know it's happening tomorrow. There's actually literally two events. One, the pre-event is going to be from 10 to 10:30, and that's going to be at the location of the new billboard, which is on South Las Vegas Boulevard and Hidden Well Road. And
Okay.
then they're going to be moving from that point to Park Avenue and South Las Vegas Boulevard from 11:30 to 3:30. I just want to let you know about that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that, but do send me the email with the background information,
Sure.
including contact.
Also, and I will do that, and I'll send you. There's a lot of information there. I really think you should,
All right.
like check the resources that I'll send you, and it'll blow your mind when you learn about this stuff. It's literally crazy that we do this to children, and it's a conversation that needs to happen. We need to question what we're doing. We need to, because this is literally a taboo. Like most people don't even want to talk about this. I know men that don't even know that this happened to them. I wasn't even aware of this till I was 36 years of age. And
Interesting.
yeah, so I didn't even know that. Like when I learned about it and you start to understand it, you start to realize, oh, some of these damaging things, that these are actually things that our culture like experiences commonplace, such as erectile dysfunction, or we're like the number one consumer of Viagra in the world, and so we also have a premature ejaculation when we're younger, and then erectile dysfunction as we get older, and it actually reduces the quality of sexual experience for life. So men like me that were circumcised when we were infants, we don't have a clue what we're missing. And I've talked
All right,
to yeah.
you make some really interesting points. Yeah, send
Okay.
that over, and I will watch for it. I'll read it, and then go from there.
Awesome. I really appreciate you just taking the time to listen to me, David.
Oh, no, no,
I
thank you.
really
Thanks for
appreciate that.
calling. Tell me your first name again.
Daniel.
Thanks, Daniel. Thanks
Thank
for the
you, Dave.
call.
Okay, anytime, brother.
Take care.
All right, bye. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about. When are you going to ever have these conversations? You won't have these conversations on street corners. You won't have these conversations on social media. This is, I mean, that guy was awesome, right? Like, great personality, uh, open minded, and educated. And he's going to get more information from us. And I bet you he's going to read it. I mean, this is the solution, people. This is how we change our culture. This is how we do intactivism. And this is how we become effective and efficient. Those are the keys: effectiveness and efficiency. If your intactivism is, it's all about, just, I mean, if it's just about, going off on somebody and letting out some stress for your own self, I get that. That's also an important part. But the real intactivism, you're going to be talking with high value people, people that have education, people of influence. This man works at the NPR, okay, the National Public Radio. He works at NPR. He's an educated reporter, and as you can tell, open minded and great personality. And much respect to you, Dave. Thank you for awesome conversation. There's nothing better than this, guys. This is where it's at. This is where intactivism needs to be. All right, this is the Las Vegas Sun. We are trying to get them to show up and do a publication for the Bloodstained Man, which is showing up to people around.
Las Vegas Sun.
Hi, can you connect me to the newsroom?
One moment.
Thank you.
Las Vegas Sun.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Dan. I'm calling about a protest that's occurring tomorrow in Las Vegas. Wanted to let you guys know about it. I had sent out an email last night. I wanted to also make sure you got an opportunity.
Who did you send the email to?
I have no idea, to be honest with you.
If you want to resend it and send it to me, I will respond with your email with who I sent it to and their email addresses. Okay, my email address is Nadine, Nadine,
Okay.
at Las Vegas Sun, all spelled out lowercase.
Las Vegas. Thank you. I wanted to tell you about the protests a little bit. I don't know if you noticed, you guys got a new billboard, Las Vegas Boulevard. I think it's about a group called the Bloodstained Men that are protesting the general cutting of little boys in America. Are you familiar with?
I haven't noticed. No.
Okay. Well, there's a new I guess billboard posted downtown, but it's in the United States of America. We have this kind of aberration in our culture where we do this weird thing where we strap down our little kids and we cut off a very important functioning part of their genitals, and most people are unaware of what the part is and how it functions and stuff. Most people don't know that it's literally half the surface area, and that part that they're cutting off has 3/4 of the nerves. It's the most sensitive part, including the two most sensitive parts known as the frenulum and the wrist band. And when we do this to children, when we strap them down and we cut off this a very essential part of their genitals, it actually is so painful. It's very traumatic. It can leave lifelong damage to the brain. And this has been proven with.
Like when he gets circumcised?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with like Have you ever heard about the
circumcision?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that don't know that, but there's a big movement in the United States of people that are upset that I'm a circumcised man, that are upset that we were circumcised. The 80% of the world's men don't do circumcision. The only cultures that do circumcision for medical reasons is the United States of America, and the rest of the world, including most of the doctors of the rest of the world, completely disagree that circumcision is medicine. In fact, the AAP hasn't had a recent policy in over 10 years. I think it's like 5 years past their expiration of their policy. So they don't even have a modern policy. And the reason is because they know they're going to get sued very soon. And in fact, a lot of lawsuits are coming down on the AAP right now. And so we're a group that we think that everybody has the right to their whole body. Nobody has the right to cut body parts off of children, especially when they have no ability to consent to it. And in fact, it's not medically necessary. In fact, it's medically damaging. The medical excuses they'll use, such as UTIs or HIV, are very questionable. A lot of the research is questionable. It's not very solid. In fact, most medical organizations in the world noticed that there was a response to the last AAP policy statement on circumcision by a number of physicians around the world, and many of them heads of their pediatric departments, that said that the American Academy of Pediatrics is using culturally biased science to justify what is a very profitable industry. They make about $2 billion a year off of it. And most men don't realize that when this is done to them, that they're literally missing the main sensory tissue. And there's also a mechanical function. So the man is supposed to have a moving part that makes sex more pleasurable for the woman, because it reduces friction and it controls the movement of the man. So it actually affects the way the man makes love. So it's really damaging, and most people are just unaware of it. It's a taboo to even discuss. A lot of people don't want to talk about it, especially parents that may have been, kind of like had doctors kind of talk them into this. And then they don't want to admit that they did anything wrong. The doctors don't want to acknowledge anything, because then they'll get sued the moment they admit that they're damaging children. And it's like I said, it's an aberration in our culture. It's not. It seems to be like this misplaced thing. The United States is about freedom and human rights and human dignity, and this is very degrading and disrespectful. And it's very sad that our culture does. This actually started as an anti-masturbation campaign in the 1890s, when it was believed that sin caused diseases. So this literally predates germ theory, and they were doing it to boys if they were caught masturbating as a punishment, because they thought masturbation was a sin, and sin caused diseases. This is why they started it. And so, anyways, they're going to be protesting tomorrow at I think the location of the sign is actually Las Vegas Boulevard and Hidden Well Road. I don't remember Hidden Well Road. I used to live in Vegas, Hidden Well Road. But that's...
I remember that.
Okay, great. I used to live in Vegas for 10 years, but I've never heard of that street. I was like, where is that? But I know where Park Avenue and Las Vegas Boulevard. That's where we're going to be protesting. So I guess they're going to be at the sign from 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and that's at Las Vegas Boulevard and Hidden Well. And then they're going to be actually protesting on the boulevard at Park Avenue and South Las Vegas Boulevard, from 11:30 to 3:30. And so we just really want, we're just really hoping somebody could cover this event, because even if just the media just kind of writes an article saying, hey, there's a group that's really protesting this. This is, people are going to start to realize that there's people that are questioning this, and that's what we really want. We want people to do their own research. We want people to question this, because when you really unpack it and you really do your research on it, it's absolutely kind of sad that we do this. Like I said, it literally alters the mind. It's so painful. I mean, obviously, genitals are the most sensitive parts of our bodies, and doctors, in fact, and still today, only 45% of doctors use any anesthesia whatsoever, and local anesthesia. You can't put an infant to sleep because it's too dangerous because of the anesthesia. So they can only give them local anesthesia, but the local anesthesia is only about 50% effective because of the complexity of the nerve. And so every child that has this done to them will go through extreme pain, even the children that are anesthetized. But the doctors, in 55% of the cases, don't even give any anesthesia whatsoever. They just cut at the child while it's screaming in pain. That's why they strap it to that circ board. You've probably seen those circ boards. They have Velcro straps to strap down the child and immobilize the child. And those circ boards are there because it's literally so painful. I mean, they've had children with ruptured stomachs, bursted lungs. They've had all kinds of horrible things happen to these children. They've done a lot of scientific studies to show that after the fact, after the children have been circumcised, they're actually more sensitive to pain. So they respond to stress and pain different than children that have not been circumcised. And if you study what's called adverse childhood experiences, which have been studied in depth by like Harvard University, they've shown that any type of trauma, especially in the earlier life, the earlier the trauma, the worse the repercussions are. So we like to think, oh, he slept through it, or the child won't remember it because he's so young. But in fact, it literally alters the epigenome of the child and how their genes are activated in the future. Because if you imagine an animal, an organism, and it gets birthed into a world that's very dangerous, and it goes through trauma, it's going to be more likely to respond to that trauma in the future. And so that your body actually upregulates your trauma response. And so this is, when you unpack it, this could be a reason for all sorts of behavioral problems. The FBI has even done associated circumcision with mass shootings and serial killers. I'm not kidding. It's that extreme. It's that influential. And a lot of people think that this is a cause of autism. It can SIDS. They've been shown that it increases SIDS. If you look at the United States, of course, more boys die from SIDS, and then also in the United States, there's more SIDS than in places like Britain where they don't do Great Britain where they don't. So anyways, that's I just wanted to let you guys know about that and give you a little bit of info for you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's been learned some today. That
right.
Is very interesting.
Well,
are you going to?
Yes, ma'am. And I'm going to have yes, ma'am. And I'm going to have all sorts of information in there. There's some links that you can check out, like in the future, if you want to do some of your own study. Like I said, you almost have to know where to search to find this information because it's not just out there. You know what I mean? So you're not going to find it if you do a Google search. So yeah, it is kind of hidden, unfortunately. But we're trying to change that. We just want the conversation to start. We want people to question it. We want people to be at least aware that there's a question about what we're doing. You know what I mean? So that hopefully we can help.
I think good. Yeah. I lost my thought.
No, I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's hard to think about this stuff. Most people, we think we live in this wonderful country, and we do, compared to many places in the world. But it's like we just do this weird thing, and it's really damaging, and we don't want to acknowledge it. It's really literally a taboo to even talk about it. We have literally a taboo about discussing this in our society, and this is why nobody talks about it. We don't talk about this at the dinner table. We don't talk about this with our family. We barely talk about this with their doctor. Oftentimes, the first time mothers will hear about this is when the doctor, after birth, when the mother's like recovering, maybe on drugs, and the doctor comes and said, "Hey, we're going to do this circumcision thing. Can you sign this consent form? They'll say it has some health benefits, but the health benefits, like I said, for instance, they'll say UTIs. Well, UTIs in males are actually kind of rare. They're 10 times more common in females, and we would never cut a little girl for a UTI. You know what I mean? We just give them antibiotics and we treat them. They're easily treatable. Most UTIs, don't have any problems, so it's easily treatable. And we just think, hey, you know what? We could treat boys the exact same way. And in fact, the science behind UTIs is very, very questionable. I mean, I could get into really depth with you. I'm sure you don't have that much time, but it's very, very questionable. In fact, they say it only is beneficial for the first year of life, which means after the first year of life, for the rest of the child's life, it has no influence on UTIs whatsoever. And the influence is very, very minimal, like 0.5% or 1.5%. So it's just almost like pulling, it's almost like saying, like cutting off a foot to prevent a stub toe. You know what I mean? It's just that ludicrous. There's really no validation for it. Anyways, thank you, Nadine. I'm going to send you this email right now, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to me.
Oh yeah, no, it's been really knowledgeable. I will definitely forward that, and I will respond to email with who I forwarded.
Okay, thank you so much, Nadine. You're really awesome. It takes a special kind of person to at least just even listen to this. So I really appreciate that. That means something about you as a person. So I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much.
All right, Nadine. You too. Take care.
I look forward to email.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay.
You're welcome.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Wow. my first email of this campaign was like that. It doesn't get better than that, y'all. I mean, wow. I mean, you heard her. That's the difference sometimes when you get these reporters. A lot of these people are they're taught to question. They're taught to be critical thinkers. They're taught to flesh out a story. They're taught to look for deeper information. These are researchers, of the highest degree. These are the people that have influence. They're educated. It's just a different level. So, wow. Good on you, Nadine. I really respect you. Las Vegas Sun, much respect to you. Thank you so much. This might be interesting. I get to talk to a person. This is Nevada legal news. Well, are you interested in the largest class action lawsuit in human history that's going to be coming up and the legislation?
Thank you for calling Nevada Legal. Hi, this is Jackie from Nevada Legal News. How can I help you?
Yeah, I'm calling to see if there's anybody I can talk to about a protest about a legal issue that we have going on, and I was just curious if you maybe knew any reporters that might be interested in the story.
So we are only a legal news company, so we don't do any of those stories. It would
Okay.
just be legal papers.
Oh, I see. I understand. Okay. Well, I guess the one thing I was going to say is that there's a protest and it's going to be happening in Las Vegas Boulevard tomorrow about what I consider one of the worst things our society does, and it should be illegal. In fact, it is illegal, but it's not prosecuted. But we have doctors taking pliers and knives to healthy kids with no diagnosis and cutting off an essential part of their genital organs for no reason. And this is the biggest human rights issue in America right now. It's the biggest medical fraud in human history. And in the future, this will become the biggest class action lawsuits that have ever happened. So if any lawyers, this would be a fantastic opportunity for them to make a lot of money, because this is one of the most egregious things our medical system does. And there's absolutely no...
So I actually have a question.
Yes,
Sorry
please.
for interrupting.
No, you're fine.
But we just received that email this morning.
Oh, good.
And I was just wondering, why would it be bad?
That's a good question. Well, most people don't know, but it's literally one half the surface area and includes 75% of the nerve endings, including the two most sensitive parts, what's known as the frenulum and the ridge band. So the frenulum and ridge band are full of what's called Meissner corpuscles. Those are the most sensitive nerves in the body. Those are the nerves that when your fingertips and your lips, the reason why kissing and touching feels good is because of your Meissner corpuscles, and those are found in parts of the foreskin. And it also has a mechanical function that during sex it reduces friction of what's called intermission, which when one object is going inside another object, it reduces the friction of that. It helps to regulate the movement pattern of the male. So men have been damaged and altered. We're missing. I'm circumcised. I'm missing 75% of the nerve endings, so I'm already missing a lot of the nerves. So men that have been damaged, they'll usually try to make more friction, and they're pounding away at their girlfriends, and that removes the quality of sensation for the woman. So it actually affects the female partner as well. Not only is this sexually damaging, okay, because it alters the mechanics of the mechanical function of sex, it actually is so painful because obviously these are sensitive parts. It's so painful to remove that it literally creates morphological structural changes in the child's brain. We've done studies on what's called adverse childhood experiences and early life trauma. We like to tell ourselves that our child forget about it. Oh, he won't remember it. But in fact, it's actually baked into his epigenetics. So the way his genes are expressed are literally altered by this. It's that painful. And the medical excuses, this literally started as an anti-masturbation campaign in the 1890s when it was believed that sin caused diseases. So doctors, if they caught boys masturbating, they would circumcise them without anesthesia as a punishment. And the same doctors that did that to little boys, if they caught little girls masturbating, they would burn off their clitoris with carbolic acid. So this started as in 19th century quackery, and it's still being perpetuated today. Now the excuses have morphed; they've gotten more sophisticated. But if you really unpack them, like if you look at the reasons, like for instance, they say UTIs. Well, females have 10 times more likelihood of getting UTIs. We don't cut labia off little girls; we just give them antibiotics. So the idea that we need to cut parts off babies to reduce UTIs. Well, first off, UTIs are only the protective effect, supposedly, of these studies that say that there's some benefit to doing this. That the protective of mechanism is only active for about the first year of a baby's life. and it only reduces UTIs by 1.5%. So it's basically like cutting off a foot to prevent a stub toe. You know what I mean? It's absolutely nonsensical. Now there's other excuses such as HIV. The HIV, like the studies that they did in Africa that supposedly showed a 60% reduction, that's a relative. I forgot how the terms go, but basically, it's not really a 60% reduction. If you look at the studies, they're hopelessly flawed. Like you could pick them apart a million different ways. There's what's called lead time bias, researcher bias, attrition bias. They had a lot of people that dropped out, but they supposedly show this very small change between one percentage to another, and then they claim that that's a 60% reduction. In fact, what's happening in Africa right now is there's a mutilation. They call that voluntary male circumcision or clinic, or voluntary male medical circumcision. Now, what that does, they go over to Africa and they tell these African men, hey, if you get circumcised, it's like a vaccine for HIV. Well, these African men, first off, you're cutting off the majority of their the sensual nerves, right? So what happens when you remove sensual nerves? Do you think a guy wants to wear condoms when he's only got 25% sensation? Absolutely not. So these African men, they're not using condoms. They think they have some protective mechanism from this circumcision, and they're getting HIV and dying. I've talked to African men in Kenya that he lost two of his best friends because they thought they were from a tribe that didn't circumcise, but they went through they were circumcised at 16 under this voluntary male circumcision clinic, and both of his friends died from HIV because they thought that they wouldn't get it. They were like, oh, I'm vaccinated from this, or I'm circumcised, so I'm fine. And so they had promiscuous sex and got HIV and died. So this is actually increasing HIV in these cultures, in these countries. And if you look at what's called epidemiology, which is the study of disease trends, and you look at the cultures that circumcises versus cultures that don't. Now, first off, the U.S. is the only country in the world that claims this is medicine. There's no other countries that say that this is medicine, except for basically using the excuses that the U.S. has given them. So all the other cultures that do this, they do it for religious or cultural reasons. So if you look at the cultures that don't do this, there's no increases in diseases. There's no increases in UTIs. There's no increases in penile cancer. There's decreases in HIV and most STIs. In fact, Europe has far less HIV and STIs than America does. So the idea that America, the country that has high rates of HIV and STDs, is going to go over to Africa and prevent African HIV is just absolutely nonsensical. It's a profit thing, and this is where the business aspect comes into play, because they make about $2 billion a year just to cut off the tissue. Now, this is crazy. Doctors don't just throw away that tissue. A lot of them will sell that tissue. So they'll sell the stolen tissue from a baby's genitals to a cosmetic company to make women's face cream. In fact, this will blow your mind, but Oprah sells a product called Skin Medica. Okay, now you've probably heard that Oprah is very against female mutilation, which everybody should be, right? But she's very against that. Yet she sells a product with the tissue of babies' genitals, of male genitals. It's called Skin Medica. You can't really make this stuff up. So, in my opinion, this is going to be it's going to come to a head. This can't continue in our culture. We have massive numbers of parenting groups that are broaching the subject, and there's massive debates happening online. And this is all coming to a head in our society. It's not going to last for long, but this will be, in my opinion, probably the largest class action lawsuit in human history. And I think that lawyers, I don't even care if the lawyer cares about this issue at all. Like, he could not care about it, but if he's greedy, this is a way to make a lot of money, because there is going to, this is going to.
My kids, if my kids had circumcision and stuff like that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I can get it. I can get in the lawsuit. Is that correct?
Yeah, because you were lied to. You probably were not given proper informed consent. And so so a doctor, first off, these doctors don't know the anatomy, structure, and function. Okay. There's very few doctors that can tell you the surface area that's been removed from a child, the number of nerve endings, the structure and function. So these doctors are uneducated in this body part. In fact, if you look at the medical curriculum in medical schools these days, they don't even tell the medical students about the structure and function of the male anatomy. So,
interesting.
Yeah, and then when they tell the mothers, hey, this is beneficial for your child. And they say reduces all these diseases, but it doesn't. It's all a lie. and it really damages the child. It doesn't do anything for the child whatsoever, and then it damages him when he becomes a man. This is it's the biggest lie in our culture, and it's actually a taboo to even discuss. So this is it's mind boggling that this even occurs. That
yeah. Well, I'm so sorry we don't publish those kind of ads, but
Sure.
thank you for educating me on that.
Oh,
And I hope everything goes well
Right.
in your
Well, I think
parade.
look into this. Do you want me to send you an email with more information? You can look into it yourself a little bit more if you're interested.
No, it's okay because
Okay.
I did receive an email this morning and I did read through it, so I think I pretty
Perfect.
know. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to hear that. And the reason I'm doing this is to really to educate people. So it's just as important for me to talk to you about this as it is anybody else, even though you guys aren't going to publish an article about this. So I'm really glad that we had this conversation.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care,
Have
man.
a good day.
Very nice talking with you.
Bye.
Bye. Very interesting. You could hear that she's got a little bit of an accent. She knows she's Hispanic. This is exactly when I talk to Hispanic people and I say the American doctors are pushing this on the Hispanic population. That is not a cutting culture. This is what I'm talking about. And it's just sad, just sad that she doesn't know this stuff. No one taught her this stuff. She wasn't given proper informed consent. That's illegal. This is already illegal, people. This is already illegal. We just need the laws to be enforced. We don't need new laws for FGM or MGM. You don't need a law to tell people not to cut off people's pinkies or earlobes. You don't need a specific law for every body part. You just say don't attack somebody with a knife and cut off normal body parts off somebody. Cutting into somebody is a human rights violation and it's illegal. It's an assault and battery. Anyways, that was a great opportunity. See, even if it's not like these publications that I know are, like these magazines or something like that, even though I know that they're not going to, like publish an article about this, sometimes I'll talk to them anyways, because these are reporters and these are people that, they have their own lives, and this information, I want them to have this information too. You know what I'm saying? So it's every part of this is valuable. Every opportunity, every message I leave, every person I talk to is an opportunity to save a child. And maybe she has a future child. Maybe she has another child in the future. Maybe she does her research. Maybe she tells her child, hey, I'm sorry this happened, and it stops it from happening in her future. I mean, it's valuable.
Break up the adhesions between the foreskin and the head of the penis.
In pediatrics, the reason we're circumcising is mainly because you feel more comfortable with a circumcised penis, especially since your other two children are already circumcised, right? Basically what we're doing is an elective procedure, primarily because you just feel more comfortable. In the clamp, then we clamp it.
Capitalization behind circumcisions. Hospitals and doctors can make big bucks off the procedure, especially since the foreskin doesn't always go out with the biohazard. Sometimes it's sold for a profit.
Look at the data. It looks like there are some things that it does reduce the incidence of, but they're things that are incredibly rare anyway.
There are religious, ethical, cultural, and medical reasons to circumcise. For Father Kobe Johnson, despite being circumcised himself, he decided not to circumcise his 4 boys.
The concern of, I'm going to look different than my dad, or I'm going to look different than the other guys in the middle school shower, it doesn't really come up that much.
To him, medical benefits didn't outweigh the risks.